Marvel Comics and DC are filled with iconic characters that have shaped both the comic book landscape and the childhoods of many. And while I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, I find the weird and obscure characters of the Marvel Universe just as iconic as something like the Avengers or the X-Men. One of my favorite obscure comic characters from Marvel is the topic of this video, Marvel's very own Godzilla, the American Kaiju. Created by writer Al Ewing and artist Fernando Sandoval, American Kaiju first appears in Avengers issue 0. My copy says first appearance of the Ultimates, but I bought it for the Big Lizard Man, so in my heart, it's his name that should be on the sticky note. Avengers issue 0 acts as a where are they for the various Avengers teams after the publisher-wide event Secret Wars. No, not that Secret Wars, this Secret Wars. In this grab-bag book of stories, American Kaiju appears in the New Avengers section of the book. In this story, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent gets kidnapped by one of the many evil organizations that plague the Marvel Universe, Whisper. They hook him up to a power amplifier device that will turn the agent's power of telepathy into a way to see the future. Whisper nicely suggests that their guest should focus their newly gained power boost on Roberto da Costa. Da Costa was at one point the former X-Men sunspy, but recently he uses immense wealth to acquire the evil organization AIM. AIM stands for Advanced Idea Mechanics, and they're responsible for villains like MODOK. There's also a running joke that their henchmen look like beekeepers. Da Costa transforms AIM into a global rescue organization, and their place of operation is on Avengers Island, which is located in international waters. AIM even has its own Avengers team, the New Avengers. While this sounds like a great opportunity to use the AIM name for something good, that same AIM name still causes people to be uncomfortable, and by people I mean the US military. All they see is a foreign entity with enough firepower to threaten the US, and that causes them to scheme, as they usually do. Their scheme is to develop their ace in the hole, the American Kaiju. That's as far in the future as the agent is able to project before being fried alive by the machine. After each book, we're going to discuss how he looks because throughout his appearances, his design changes for some reason, like there doesn't seem to be an adherence to one design. There are even inconsistencies from cover to the interior art. Worst of all, it's not always the case of creative teams changing because his next appearance was written by Al Ewing and drawn by Gerardo Sandoval, his own creators. In Avengers issue 0, his initial design resembles a dinosaur man with a bunch of sharp protrusions. His eyes glow an atomic green, and the American flag is plastered on his forehead. Basically, he looks like a combination of Zilla from the 90s American Godzilla movie and the Superman villain Doomsday. The S.H.I.E.L.D. agent's prediction of the future comes to fruition in the New Avengers issue 8 through 10. This 3-issue arc is a tie-in to another event of the year called Standoff. TLDR, S.H.I.E.L.D. is using the Cosmic Cube, which has manifested itself as a child named Kobik, to brainwash supervillains. Once they do that, they dump them in Pleasant Hill, a closed-off community that's monitored by S.H.I.E.L.D. Supporting Hulk character Rick Jones finds out about this and decides to act as a whistleblower. This places him on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s watch list, and with no one else to turn to, he contacts the New Avengers for assistance. Like the US government, he's not a huge fan of AIM in any capacity, but now that he's arrested, the New Avengers are deployed to extract Rick from the S.H.I.E.L.D. battle carrier. When reading this, it unlocked a hidden memory. Did you know that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the hit ABC show The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had their own book? I wasn't expecting a crossover that technically is not a crossover because this is a comic version of the TV show characters, not the TV show versions of the characters that had comic counterparts before this and my head hurts. 2015 Marvel was weird, I'll leave it at that. One fight later, they rescue Rick Jones and retreat back to Avengers Island. This triggers the US military because this solves a problem they had. While the US military wanted to destroy AIM for existing, they couldn't because they operated in international waters. But now that the New Avengers attacked S.H.I.E.L.D., an American government arm, this gives the military carte blanche to destroy AIM without prejudice. The permission comes to bear its kaiju-sized fruit as the US military decides to deploy American Kaiju on Avengers Island. After we get all this build-up, we finally get time to spend with American Kaiju and learn his backstory. But let's take a look at the cover of the New Avengers issue 9 because we've entered redesign number 2. We get our first full body shot of American Kaiju. His back is broad with spikes all around it. He has chest plates like a turtle. The other spikes around him are much more pronounced and he has a white snout. Lastly, the flag on his forehead is much brighter. Overall, he looks much more monstrous in comparison to his initial dinosaur lizard design from the previous book. We learned that American Kaiju's secret identity is Corporal Todd Ziller. This reads as if Godzilla had a 4Kids dub and some executive decided to Americanize the name. Here we get to learn how Todd turns into the American Kaiju. And it's ridiculous. For years, multiple governments have tried to recreate the super soldier serum to make their own Captain America. Especially the US because they want a Captain America they can control and weaponize. However, these attempts have not gone well because the original formula has been lost of time. But that hasn't stopped these governments from throwing whatever's around in order to fill in the gaps. If you think this is absolutely dangerous and irresponsible, yeah. So in this forbidden protein shake, the US government added gamma radiation, which made the Hulk, mutant growth hormones, PIM particles, what makes Ant-Man grow and shrink, and the lizard formula, which explains his appearance. I completely forgot what mutant growth hormones did, other than acting as a performance enhancer, but that's what gave Nitro the power to blow up Stanford, Connecticut in Civil War. If you think this is absolutely dangerous and irresponsible, yeah. This is the second time I've mentioned Civil War. I'm gonna have to make a video on it at some point, aren't I? At this point you'll wonder, how can anyone survive something that's as horribly put together as this version of the super soldier formula? But it's explained that it's all based on the willpower of the participant. He's a normal dude, not Green Lantern, like, come on. Once again, if you think this is absolutely dangerous and irresponsible, yeah. The person overseeing the testing of this formula is General Robert L. Maverick, and he recants a story he saw on Facebook. Facebook, Jesus Christ. Usually this would seem outdated, but the story he's about to tell is Facebook in a nutshell. The story is that there's this college professor who's an atheist. In front of the class, he dares God to strike him down if he's real. He gave God 15 minutes to do so, which is the most Reddit thing I've ever read in my entire life. When the time was almost up, a student decided to punch the professor in the face. That student is revealed to be Todd, and that apparently gives Maverick the confidence that he's the man for the job. This makes no sense, but whatever. Todd is injected with the formula and begins to transform into the American Kaiju. His breath fogs out the window, and his eyes glow green as he stares at the general and scientist. It's here where he resembles Godzilla more than anything, but a bit more spikier. Now that Todd is juiced up on his furry TF concoction, the general greenlights his deployment on Avengers Island. Once deployed, he rises out of the ocean, his body looking pretty slim and lizard-like, and he screams his iconic catchphrase, I don't know how that had me. The American Kaiju, your tax dollars at work. As he starts his barrage on Avengers Island, we see more of his body. The American flag goes down from his neck to his body. This makes me wonder a couple things. Is Todd in complete control? The only way I can see the flag being there is if he transforms and then allows people to paint his body. Is not in his human form, because when we see him transform, his chest is blank. His design here is not in its final form, and to say more is spoilers. And I don't do spoilers! But with a giant eyesore of a kaiju running amok, there's only one way to stop him. A giant mech. Todd screeches his catchphrase, and then a portal shows up right next to him, which stops him mid-catchphrase. In that second of confusion, a metal fist socks him across the face, like Todd did to his professor. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Here's where we get American Kaiju's full design for the time being. Now he looks like the chonky Godzilla from the legendary films, and he has an American flag on his forehead. At this point, I'm convinced that they put something in the formula to make his chest drape the American flag on top of a giant stamp to whack his forehead before slapping his ass out there. There's no changes for Todd on the cover of the New Avengers number 10, so we can move on. The New Avengers start knocking the shit out of American Kaiju. His design is consistent for a couple pages, but then on page 4, he looks like a buff lizard man instead of the pudgy Godzilla he was a second ago. The New Avengers mech uses the minds of his pilots to work the mech, so due to a crisis of faith mid-battle, the New Avengers start to get sloppy. This gives Todd a chance to get some hits on the mech, but that doesn't last long because the New Avengers use their gamma reactor to short-circuit Todd's ability to transform. Not only does it reverse him to his human form, but he passes out as his body falls into the ocean. We don't see the general yanking his body out of the ocean, so his fate is left unknown until... Before I go off about the Marvel Wiki, I want to take a minute to say, if you like this video, smash that like button, we're bringing it back, and subscribe to the channel to see more. Engagement helps videos get seen by the algorithm, so it's appreciated. With that being said, according to the Marvel Wiki, Todd's next appearance is in US Avengers number 1, because of course that's the book he gets featured in. But that's sort of untrue. This is why it's important to do more research on things instead of relying on one source like a wiki. At the end of US Avengers number 1, there's a page that shows future stories this series will have. Kind of like Avengers issue 0. I discussed how he looks here, but this is the cover to issue number 4, so let's dive into that one instead. US Avengers issue 4's version of Todd's design is by far the weirdest. He looks like a combination of Groot and some alien. Maybe even Hive, and I know Groot's an alien, but that's not the point. The American flag is now draped over his whole face. It's really weird and not even close to any of the previous designs. Worst of all, he doesn't even look like this in the book proper. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. This book explains what happens to Todd after the events of the New Avengers issue 10. Apparently no one picked him up after the battle on Avengers Island, and now he's wreaking havoc in some Eastern European country. This looks horrible, especially with Todd having the American flag on his chest. Speaking of, Todd here looks like a dinosaur rather than a giant lizard man here. It's pretty boring, but it's explained why in the story, so I won't go too much into it. To add insult to injury, this specific Eastern European country borders Latveria, Dr. Doom's home, in Symkaria, meaning it is not done away with as quietly as possible, which I don't know how that's possible because it's a giant lizard man with an American flag on him, so quickly is better than quietly, I'm just saying. This could become a powder keg to a much larger issue in the future. AIM and SHIELD are working together on this, so DaCosta briefs General Maverick and then deploys him into the country. General Maverick at this time was Red Hulk, but his ability to turn into Red Hulk is limited to an hour a day, so this adds more stakes to an already stressful situation. For some reason the book is broken into chapters, so I'm going to summarize it as quickly as I can so we can get back to the giant lizard man. Upon entering the Eastern European country, Red Hulk's attacked by a hulked out version of Deadpool. We then get a flashback to explain why Deadpool looks this way. Deadpool was paid to enter the country in order to capture or kill Dr. Victor Van Doom. No, not that Van Doom, but this Van Doom. Because comics. Before Deadpool can do his job, Todd appears from behind him and injects him with a serum that's responsible for Deadpool hulking out. Todd is working with Dr. Van Doom because he needs the formula that makes him American Kaiju again, so Van Doom has been using Todd's blood to perfect the serum that's resulted in the hulked out Deadpool. So quid pro quo, Van Doom uses Todd to make a serum, and in return, Todd can be American Kaiju again. But this is the first time we get to understand Todd as Todd, instead of as a giant lizard man, or what others think of him. Todd feels that without the ability to transform, he's small and weak, and he misses being big and strong. At face value, this can be seen as a joke. The book thinks so. After word vomiting his anxieties, he immediately course corrects and says, for America, I have no underlying issues. Which gets a bazinga from the doctor. Another easy joke is that Todd is a secret furry, but an interesting idea is presented here, and that's the possibility that Todd has body dysmorphia. On top of the I have no underlying issues comment, he also mentions missing a tail. It's played for a joke and I could be looking too deep into it, but Todd being body dysmorphic is an interesting way to interpret it, and would be an interesting plot point to tackle in the future. Anyway, Red Hulk and Deadpool fight some more. Deadpool's healing factor siphons out the serum so he turns back to normal. Woo, yeah, yeah! And the dysfunctional duo partners up for the raid boss. Todd emerges and begins to attack the two. The formula Dr. Van Doom gave him is obviously unstable, not only from its design, but from the lettering. Instead of a typical more erratic, I don't know, what's an erratic voice? Is that better? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, Todd grabs Deadpool and prepares to chomp on him, but Red Hulk grabs Todd by the tail and tosses him at Van Doom's castle. And then the fight ends. Okay. Todd ends up being on the news, and Symkaria is asking questions as to why an American BOW was running amok in their country. This leads to a confrontation between Director Rogers, at the time Captain America was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and DaCosta. But that's not important because Todd wouldn't be seen again until
your God is awake, and God is coming.
For the second time, Todd appears in a tie-in to an event comic. King of Black was a Venom-centric event that saw Null, the god of the symbiotes, invade Earth with his army of symbiotes. While every hero in the Marvel Universe was concerned with fighting off Null and the symbiotes, the US government decided to send Todd in and clean up shop. In spite of being on the cover of Planet of the Symbiotes 2, he's only in half of the book. Let's talk about that cover. Todd has once again changed design-wise. Instead of his dinosaur look from the Barstow formula, which was already a Barstow version of the Super Soldier Serum, he now looks like a chubby lizard Doomsday. The American flag on his forehead is gone, and the flag on his body is a bit faded. He has spikes all over the place, minus his thick thighs, and you can see his rolls. I don't know if I'm going to do a tier list on every design change at the end of the video, but this is high on the list. Just don't get comfortable with this look because it changes again. Woo! They made him sexy here? I mean, look at him. His big boobas, a fat ass, a six-pack, and a shadow over his crotch? Are you telling me this man has his cock hanging out as he's fighting symbiote dragons? I remember seeing this in Newberry Comics when this came out and immediately thinking, was this intentional? Did a furry sneak into Marvel and create peak? No. This is artist Kyle Hotz, and this is his normal art style. Fantastic art though. The fights were engaging and fun to follow, and yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the story. The story is interesting because it's doing two things at once. One is a story where Giant Lizard Man is fighting goo monsters in a city, and two is an introspective look at Todd himself. We haven't really gotten any characterization from Todd other than him being a soldier who's following orders with some body dysmorphic tendencies. But here we get a good read on Todd as a person, which is pretty cool and subversive. American Kaiju is a meme character that's meant to exist in these small pockets, but I want to see more and know who this dude is. So let's learn about Todd. While we don't follow up on his European rampage, we see that he now has a handler. We don't get to learn her name, but she's seen halo jumping onto Todd and nestling on his back as he does his thing. For the first time we get to hear, well, read, what Todd thinks, and that means he's self-aware in this form. We don't get evidence that this is after the fact, so it's safe to assume that these are his thoughts while in this form. Todd thinks back and wonders if he's a monster. This thought being laid out as he tosses a dead Simio Dragon aside. His mini character bio ends off with, now he's usually the American Kaiju, because why wouldn't he be? Which has sinister implications because if you think about it, if he's always American Kaiju, does that mean he's being drugged up all the time? Because if that's the case, then that's horrifying. And that's something I really didn't think about until I was recording the video. So yeah, I wonder if this will go somewhere in the Thunderbolts book. I'll talk about that later, but wow. This makes me wonder what happened between US Avengers and now, but we might never know, which sucks. Todd is a walking mess. The super soldier serum being a hodgepodge of whatever works, that happens to be a giant lizard man. But it's not something he was pressured into because he wanted power, and power for Todd equates having a purpose. A purpose that was forcefully manifested by subjecting himself to whatever the government needed. But he's self-aware enough to understand that his appearance is due to the government cutting corners and not really expecting the results they got. The ability to fight for his country is a source of pride for him and a purpose worth pursuing. But that self-awareness, once again, comes out to bite him in his green ass. All this is being thought while his handler is holding on for dear life. Her fear made worse when a two-headed symbiote dragon pushes Todd into buildings. Back to Todd being self-aware, he realizes that while it's great that he's destroying symbiote dragons, it comes at the cost of collateral damage on a wide scale. Neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, and a street fair that must be brimming with civilians. While the threat of Null will be neutralized, what will happen to the civilians after the fact? Who will look out for them? Will they blame the symbiotes for their misfortune? Or the giant lizards sent by their own government? Is the American government at fault for turning him into this? Yes. There's this panel of Todd nomming on a symbiote dragon, but his face gives off the vibe of horrified realization, and the thought box next to him helps to prove it. It could also be an artist error or me jumping to conclusions, but the idea of him freaking out now is pretty powerful. Todd again admits that he wanted this. He volunteered to become what he is now. So maybe he's to blame for all this destruction. His final thoughts before being shot by his handler are, so does doing the things I've done make me a monster? Or am I a monster for wanting to be one in the first place? Todd violently transforms back into his human form and passes out from exhaustion. The story ends with his handler flippantly telling his unconscious body that she'll get on mozzarella sticks when they get back, with an obligatory ooh rah tacked on. Ignoring the fact that the Marvel Universe has systems in place to take care of collateral damage and stuff like that, getting this level of pathos from Todd was amazing. He's not just a military dude, he's a character with thoughts and feelings. We get a micro look into Todd's body dysmorphia in US Avengers, but it's not played as seriously as it is in this book. Once again, a lot of people like him as a meme and will enjoy him just as is. But I really think that he's a character with a lot of potential. Creators like Daniel Warren Johnson have proved that you can have a book with WWE level battles with a lot of heart, so why can't you get that for Todd? Captain America is a character who loves America but sees his flaws and wants to do more, which gets him in conflict with the American government. Todd is a guy who wants to do good, but that blinding patriotism is being used and abused by the government, which turned him into what he is now. There are things to do with him, you just need the right writer and artist to make it work. This is the last time that we've heard from Todd. He made a blink and you miss it appearance in another King of Black tie-in, King of Black Scream 1. His design has changed for the millionth time, and now he looks like a Godzilla dinosaur type monster. Oh, how far we've fallen off from the best design from a book ago. Sad. Todd is then name dropped in the final issue of Christopher Priest's US Agent miniseries. There's some kaiju that they're fighting and it reminds them of the American Kaiju project. So remember when I said this was the last time we heard from Todd like 2 seconds ago? Well, it seems that working on this video for a year has consequences. In Marvel's attempt to bring the Thunderbolts back into public consciousness before the movie comes out, eventually, we're getting a new series in December of this year, which means this video either comes out before or after the book came out. It came out after, and it was okay. It was cool. I liked it. Usually when I hear news like this and the word Spider-Man isn't in it, I go back to sleep. But Marvel's announcement of the book came with a preview of a wraparound cover done by Jose Maria Casanovas. And who do we see US Agent and Shang-Chi fighting? The American Kaiju. Let's go! He has a new design as usual, but I did the art style, so I'll ignore the refusal to go back to his peak design. It seems like it won't show up in the story until issue 3, which comes out 14 days before my birthday. Another red W to add to my collection. Hopefully his fight against the revolution, that's what they're calling Winter Soldier now, allows him to be in the book and doesn't end with him disappearing forever. The solicitation state, Shang-Chi and the Revolution versus the American Kaiju, when an attempt to recruit US Agent and his partner Todd Ziller to the fight against Red Skull goes terribly wrong, it will take everything in Shang-Chi's and Bucky Barnes' arsenal and more than a little luck to keep American Kaiju from destroying Hong Kong.
Partner, huh? I wonder what that means.
So let's hope that this fight ends with a new party member. I'll definitely add Thunderbolts to my list of videos to make so I can justify a follow-up video to this one. Let's end this video with a random tier list ranking each of the American Kaiju's many redesigns over the years. Here's the obligatory, no disrespect to the artist, opinions are my own, blah blah blah. Let's get on with it. S rank. King in Black planned the Symbiotes issue 2. You know why. New Avengers issue 9 page 6, New Avengers issue 9 page 19, New Avengers issue 10 page 4, and New Avengers issue 10 page 5. A rank. All New All Different Avengers issue 0, New Avengers issue 9 cover, New Avengers issue 9 page 18, New Avengers issue 10 page 9, Thunderbolts issue 1 the wraparound cover, and Thunderbolts issue 3 cover. B rank. New Avengers issue 8 page 21, New Avengers issue 9 page 12, US Avengers issue 4 page 18, 4, and King in Black Scream issue 1 page 3. F rank. US Avengers issue 1 preview of issue 4, US Avengers issue 4 cover, USA Avengers issue 4 page 1, and USA Avengers issue 4 page 17 Sigma Wojak looking ass. Thanks for watching. I've wanted to make this video for a while, and to finally get to this point is really nice. Todd is by far one of my favorite characters because of how ridiculous of a concept he is and the amount of heart that's hidden within his reptile exterior. Now I gotta get through my webtoon video, but shh, you can hear that from me. I'd like to thank my patrons, Leo Crit, Retroroy, and Hack13 for supporting the channel, and for $1 a month, your name will show up right here. We're 2 patrons away from reaching the goal where I subject myself to 50 Shades of Grey, the novel. I'll either review in full, or do a reading of a spicy scene. Love you guys, and shamalamoomoo.